And so one day I couldn't stop selling drugs, and I didn't even do drugs. I just, it just becomes a cycle.
Right.
And so I cried out to God, and he showed me real estate. I put together a business plan, and I realized I could make $10,000 a month doing real estate. But I thought, like, man, that's not no money. I can't live off of that, because as a drug dealer, my budget, I did have a budget. My budget was $57,000 a month. So I was reckless. And it took me some time to get out of that. But my first year, I think I bought 12 or 13 properties, and I cashed out about $360,000 over and above and beyond. I was using the Burr method.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Remix, the video podcast that keeps you in the mix of everything real estate. I'm Noelle Freisen, and
I'm Eric Anderson, and we are so excited to have a special guest here today. And Noelle's going to tell you all about him.
Well, first, our power panel. We have a smaller panel today. We have Omar Sharif, our flipper, and we are going to be talking with Nate Barger. Nate went from a life of crime. He went from being very, 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 feeling very, very low. And now he has over 200 million in real estate holdings, as well as 3,500 Burr units. And he owns hotels. He is a hotelier.
And he flipped over 3,500 properties. That's probably my favorite of all of them.
Yes, he is a flipper. Up your alley, right?
Yeah.
So we are going to bring on Nate. There he is.
Hey, Nate.
Hey,
welcome
guys,
to the
thank
Remix.
you so much. How are you guys doing today? Thank you for having me on.
Oh, we're happy to have you.
We are. Nate, we want to start off with your story. We want to know, where were you and how did you get sort of that time when you were doing wrong, and how did you go through that and come to where you are now? Could you give us a little bit of background?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I want to go back and tell everybody usually it starts in childhood. If you're going to be a life of crime, usually something happens to you traumatic in childhood. And so a lot of you guys that are listening, what I want you to take away from my story is that, look, you can do anything you want to do once you put your mind to it. It doesn't matter what your background is. That's simply that. That's your background. That's not your future. And so, I started off, grew up in a normal blue collar alcoholic family. My mom stayed at home. My dad, he worked, but he was an alcoholic, and she was an alcoholic, and she was, high anxiety, and they fought all the time. And they were really young when they had us, me, my brother and sister. And we really just kind of raised ourselves. They weren't around. And, I think going back to counseling years later and getting help, I realized that my dad traumatized me when I was like 4 years old. He hung me over by my ankles, a dam by my ankles, and I thought he was going to kill me. And so, you think about a 4-year-old kid, and you think your dad's going to kill you, and your mom's over there. She's like stunned. She doesn't know what to do. But I had buried all that. And so I always had a lot of friends, but I was always like, I don't know. I was just kind of to myself, even though I had a lot of friends. And so at a young age, I started selling drugs and listening to rap music, and started embracing that and believing all that stuff was real. And so by the time I was 13, 14 years old, I got sent away to military school. That was the option, or I could go, I think that was one of the options, or I was going to go do some time. So I went to military school because my brother was already up there. And then when I met more criminals in there. When I got out, I started selling drugs and came home. Our neighborhood was infested with crack cocaine. That was the early 90s, and started selling crack on the street corners. And,
but if I'm correct, you started making a lot of money doing that, right?
Nah, not really. I mean, I was buying, like an ounce, maybe a quarter key. I wasn't selling a lot of cocaine back then. So I wasn't making much money. I was making, a couple $1,000s a week. And then I ended up going to prison. 17 years old, I caught my first felony. No, I just turned 18. I think I caught my first felony, got put on probation. Then within a year of that, I would catch a case and end up going to prison. I was out 57 days. I caught another case, went right back to prison. So I'm 22. And I'm walking around the track with this guy. His name was Chris. Never forget him, Chris Hemsworth from Columbus, Ohio. And I live in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And I'm walking around the track with him, and he's like, my buddies got caught. And I'm like, man, we all got caught. That's why we're in here. And I was like, what did they get caught with? And he was like, 13 tons of weed. And I was like, man, you know how much weed I can move, man? And you think about when you're in jail. If any of you guys, hopefully you've never been in jail, but if you have, you like think about all the things you're gonna do when you get out, right? Because you can't really do nothing in there. And so, I got out before him. And one day he ended up calling my mom, and because that was the only phone number I had, and she said some guy named Chris called from Columbus, and I called him, and he was like, "Are you ready?" And we went down there to Texas, man, and we had to wait about 10 or 12 days. At first, I was thinking like, man, is this real? And they came and they gave us 96 pounds of weed.
Wow.
And that's all that would fit in the trunk. And then, they start bringing it up to me. I was moving it so quick. They would bring me 300 pounds every week. And then, I was maybe marking that up $200 a pound. So I was making, $60,000 every week, which was not bad money, but sometimes you only get 150. So, then I almost got caught, man, and so that was scary for me again. They had came up and got a hotel, and I was like, nah, you guys got to get a house. You can't be staying in hotels. And well, we almost got caught, and I felt like it was their fault, so I severed that relationship. And then I was just trying and struggling and trying to find something else to do legit, but I never knew anything. Everybody around me was criminals. My best friends, they were jack boys. I mean, they would break in people's houses and put guns to their head, make them open the safes. And so it was like, then it was like I didn't have anybody around me to educate me and tell me like, hey, that stuff's wrong. That was just the way you living. And so, I tried. I maybe had about $100,000 saved up, not a lot for all the crime I did, but I was trying to find a way. And I was doing a roofing company, and I was starting all these rim and tire shops and all these different businesses, but I just kept failing. And so ultimately I went back to selling weed. This time I ended up getting it out of Arizona. Now, when I started getting out of Arizona, I was making, $700 a pound, because it was, more than that. Actually, I was getting it for $575 and I was selling it for $1,400 a pound. So, I started making money then. I was making about $240,000 every trip, and I would do a trip a week sometimes, and that's profit. And so, I was making money, but I went through and I had a nightclub, and that never really made money. That was just more of and I was really looking for something to do. I just had no.
What led you to real estate though?
So yeah, that's why I'm getting into real estate. So I'm 29 years old. I got about $2 million. I don't need money. I got I'm miserable. I'm almost suicidal, depressed, I would say. I got all this money, but I'm so paranoid. I'm going back to prison. And so one day I couldn't stop selling drugs, and I didn't even do drugs. I just, it just becomes a cycle.
Right.
And so I cried out to God, and he showed me real estate. And I'm real good with numbers. And so within, an hour, I put together a business plan, and I realized I could make $10,000 a month doing real estate. But I thought like, man, that's not no money. I can't live off of that. Because as a drug dealer, I did have a budget. My budget was $57,000 a month. So I was reckless. And it took me some time to get out of that. But my first year, I think I bought 12 or 13 properties, and I cashed out about $360,000 over and above and beyond. I was using the Burr method. I didn't even understand. Well, we didn't know what the Burr method was. We just called it cash out refi, and that was 2005.
So let's talk about your first deal. What was your absolute first deal, and tell us how you got there and your motivation to do it.
Yep. So actually my first deal was a house that I bought for $6,000, and I tore it down to the ground. And then I built it back up. I used the foundation and underground plumbing and everything that was there. And I built it back up, and I was all in that for $75,000, and I sold that for $116,000. And my motivation to do it was just because I wanted to make a legit living. And while I'm doing that, it's in a community where I had a nightclub. The police knew me from the nightclub, and they knew me because I was a drug dealer. The police came over there and said, hey, there's a house around the corner, man. It's in bad shape. You guys ought to go over there and look at it. And me and I think my partner Mike put the deal together, who I'm still partners with today. And we ended up buying that one for $6,000. But the guy, it was some stuff like um, he was the trustee. So he couldn't take any money. So I was like, look, man, I'll give you $2,000 just to take your stuff out of the house. That was a way of me giving him money or whatever. So we bought that for $6,000. I had $38,000 in that thing, and I still got that property today. I got $38,000 in it. And then when I got it reappraised and was doing a cash out refi, it appraised at 95. I got it done for $38,000 and I did it in 38 days. I was just highly motivated to find something to do legit. I was so happy to find something to do legit. It was like the first $1,000 I made in real estate felt better than the first $1 million I made selling drugs.
Totally get it. So your first projects were in the neighborhood that you had been selling the drugs in.
Yeah, I wasn't buying in the good neighborhoods. I was buying in the C and D neighborhoods.
But that's still, so you started in an area that you knew, which is awesome.
But also you were helping the neighborhood by fixing up the houses that had been run down, right?
Well, at the time, like now, yes, but back then I didn't care about the neighborhoods. I'm just trying to get some money. Like back then it was a whole different mindset. It was all survival. But yeah, now it's all about creating workforce housing for the community and understanding how all that works together.
So you talk about in your story, and you're promoting yourself. You talk about levering up or lever up. So how do I lever up? And what is lever up? What does it mean?
Well, you guys teach educational stuff. I do too, and I show people how to take. You could take 30,000 and 72x your money. Grant Cardone, he 10x, man. I'm 72x. So 72 times 30,000, that's $2.1 million. And I have a spreadsheet that I give my academy members, and we show them step by step how to do it. It's all just math, right? So the math part is easy, but then the executing, how do you go out and execute that? So it's basically using the BRRRR: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat, over and over and over. And so that's how I built my wealth. And using that tactic, you guys use that tactic as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
We teach it and use it.
We have a class on it. Eric and Omar use it all the time. It's a great method. It's brilliant.
And you said your first flip was almost a new construction. Most people don't start out with a new construction. I know my first flip was just a renovation, and I think Omar, yours was too.
Same thing.
But you weren't apprehensive to start out with such a big project as your first one.
But Nate, just a quick question alongside that. Did you start out with the $2 million that you had saved up? Was that your starting point when you decided to take that into real estate?
No comment.
No, the reason I ask is because you started out as a new construction.
You had financing.
Something much bigger, for example.
He had his own financing.
I think he had his
financing.
So you got to think about the fear factor, right? And so here I am selling drugs, and I take my attorney $80,000 in a bag. I said, "Hey man, I need to retain you." And he said, "For what?" I said, "I don't know." So when and he pushed it back, he said, "Nate, I can't take this. Anything over 10,000, I have to." And I was just that paranoid. So I was to a point in my life right then, guys, where all I wanted was, I was like, man, I just want to go take this attorney. I'm going to cop out to like 3 years. I just want to go back to prison. Last time I had peace was in prison, right? And now I knew the stakes had went up because the feds was watching me. So if the feds catch you, I'm doing 15, right? With my multiplier, because you got a multiplier based off your arrest and your criminal history. And so I felt like, man, if I could just go cop out to 3 or 4 years, man, and come out clean, man, I'll do it. Think about the mindset that I had. And so you think I'm scared about building a house? Like, man, I ain't scared about building no house. I'm worried about doing these 20 years in a Fed joint.
Well, that's what keeps people out of, I think, flipping. Most part is people are scared to just start it. And, one of the things that we always talk about is you got to be in it to win it. You just got to take that first step. Even if you don't make tons of money the first time, just getting over that initial hurdle and getting it done is really the way to get started. But so you flipped over 3,500 properties. So
4,000.
Yeah, now it's 4,000. Okay. So were a lot of those actual rehabs, or did you do wholesaling in that area too?
Nah, those are all units that we've renovated. And so I'm a buy and hold guy, but it's still really a flip. When you're doing commercial real estate, it looks like it's a buy and hold, but it's not. I'll give you an example. I bought a property in March of 2020 for $2.8 million. I had to put 1.5 million in it. So I'm in it for 4.3, and I'm selling it right now. I should be closing in about a week for 9.65 million. So the goal for me was really just to come in. It was a 128 unit complex. The goal was really just to renovate it and get the rents up. By pushing the rents up, you push the net operating income up. By pushing the net operating income off, that's what you're selling. So the goal for me is always to buy, push value, sell, and scale. So I take that 5 million out. Now I'm going to go leverage that and go buy a $25 million property. You just buy more property. You just learn to lever up.
So Nate, when you started out with that one new construction build, how did you scale up from there? Because at that time you were local, you started learning the game. But how do you go from that to doing over 4,000 deals at this point?
Yep. So I really learned the construction process really well. And then I learned, because I'm doing it all. I'm leasing. I'm taking, 50 calls a day for whatever. Like, guys, look, whatever it is, you have to tackle. There's nobody that's going to knock on your door and save you. And I'm answering your question in a roundabout way. I had got up to, I think it was 9 properties, and I had cashed out, refied all of them. And now I got like $4,000 something a month in mortgage payments, right? And none of them are rented. So now I'm burning through my cash. So now I get a property management company to come in. And, after about a week, I call them. I'm like, hey, what y'all get leased? Nothing. Oh, it doesn't work like that. What do you mean it doesn't? What the hell you mean it doesn't work like that? And then after another week, oh, nothing. We got some prospects. I say, hey, man, I just need my properties back. So I go out and I put ads in the paper. That weekend, I rented every single one of them. And I was like, now, did I sacrifice a weekend with my wife? Yeah. I did, but who cares? I still got some of those properties today. Actually, I got one of those properties today that still has the same tenant in it.
Nice.
Paying me rent ever since. So it's understanding that the sacrifice when you're in real estate that you put in a decade ago is still going to pay you for in the future. And so once I learned the system and I learned how to manage myself a little bit, then I had to learn how to deal with the banks because I had to put the paperwork together. Then I had to learn how to find the hack because I didn't really have the money to do the renovation. It's all systematic. And that's what they can learn by taking your guys' class. Man, they're going to skip this decade of learning curve that I had to go through, that you guys had to go through. And so I found some private investors. And then what I did was I learned to mark my construction up. So in other words, let's say I'm going to be all in this property for $80,000. And that's back then, guys. I know prices are a lot higher right now. I'm not asking for 80. If I know it's going to appraise at 150, I'm coming in. I'm telling him I need 75% of the 150. So I'm getting that cash up front. So I'm not waiting on the bank. I'm not having my money tied up while I'm waiting on the bank to do refi so I can do the cash out. I already did the cash out on the front end.
So after you got rolling on this and you realized that you needed to get bank loans or investors, how did your background what role did the background that you had, not the good part of the background, but the bad part of the background, with the criminal history, how did that play a factor in raising money and getting loans?
Nobody really looks at that. No, they don't look at that when you're doing loans. Now, when you start doing larger commercial loans, they'll get a letter of explanation from you. And then, when you start getting, like, I own Marriott and Hilton hotels and IHG, man, surprising. They said nothing to me about it. I'm like, first hotel was a Marriott. I'm like, man, I don't know if they're gonna let me on the agreement. But it was 1990s. I've been out since 97. So, it's old.
That's 25 years ago.
Yeah, 25 years ago. Exactly. 25 years ago, June 14th of 97 is when I got
So
out.
how did you go from the rental properties into the hotels? Like, what was the change there? Where did that happen?
But real quick, Nate, before we make that jump, just to take a step back, how did you find these private investors and what type of terms did you give them initially? What was the return on someone lending you 75% of that 150?
Good question, because I didn't know nobody. All my friends were criminals. They'd give me money, but I can't take it. I'm going to jail if I take their money. So I had a bank account at Huntington Bank. I don't know if you guys got Huntington up there.
I have a loan with them, actually.
Yep. And so the banker kept calling me, and the banker called me because I had decent amount of deposits in there, and he called and he said, he called me in there and said, what can I do for you? He wanted to help me grow because, if I'm growing, he's growing his bank. And so, I formed a relationship with him. And guys, think about this. I'm from the hood, so I don't know nobody with money. I don't know nobody with money. My family ain't got no money.
Legitimate money.
Huh?
Legitimate money.
Legitimate money. There you go. But even that, when you're selling drugs, man, drug dealers most part don't have a lot of money. I mean, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100,000. I'm talking about meeting people that got millions and millions of dollars, right? And so, you guys probably got that. Y'all in New York, y'all got the big drug dealers. But down here in Cincinnati, we ain't got people like that. Yeah, we ain't got them, man. We just got, and so I met this guy, and he was like, man, one of my friends who also banks here, he has a couple $1 million that he wants to invest, and he's not getting any yield. And so I put a presentation together, and I was like, man, I'll give you 11% interest, 11% in 2 points. And he took it. And the first deal I did with him was $150,000 multifamily that I bought for $98,000. I still got it today. It's worth about $600,000. So look, guys, bought it for 98. I had to put 20 in it. I'm in it for 118, right? I know it's going to be worth 200 when I'm done. So I told him I needed 150. And, the day of closing come, I ain't got the money. He ain't taking my call. He ain't answering, man. I'm like, oh, man, this guy done pump fake me, man. And so I just keep blowing his phone up. And then I'm like, hey, man, you going to do this deal or not? He was like, yeah. I just been busy. And we're, I'm like, man, I got to close today. And he just sent me the money. No paperwork, nothing. He sent me the money. And so then, I went out and I refinanced the property. I fixed it up. I renovated it. And I took a loan out, and they gave me 150 back. And I realized at that time, like I had already burned it and pulled the cash out. But they didn't know that, because when he filed it, when we did do the payoff, it was $150,000 payoff. So the $150,000 payoff was, I just was going to get a rate and term refi, right? And so he calls me and says, man, I'm having a bad day. And I said, what's going on, Jim? He said, well, I got this check for $150,000. And I said, okay, well, why are you having a bad day? I thought you'd be happy. He's like, no, I really want the interest. And I was like, Jim, I can buy more property. And so, man, now I got somebody to fund me properties, and I just start rolling with them. And I had a couple other private investors that I had met too. But that was about 2008, 2009. I got married in 2007. My wife really helped me change my life because I was an alcoholic too. And, she helped me get sober. 2006. You look at my arrest record, I probably got like 60 different court cases. They all stopped when I stopped drinking. And so, I became an alcoholic too, guys. And so I overcame that through the power of God. I mean, I'll tell you guys that story later if you want to hear it. But I really was just hustled so hard that people started taking notice. And it felt so good to be able to just do something legit.
Yeah. So this was around 2008. And from what I remember, the market was overpriced at that point, right before the crash. So you have funding at this point, but how did you scale and find deals that made sense to Bird? Because when we do it as well, but given the market today is much different, it's hard to find deals that add up. And then when you try to scale it, what's your marketing technique to get those to grow at the pace that you did?
I don't think so. There's an abundance of deals out here. I can close as many deals as I want to close. The difference is really understanding how to look at those deals different. I got 2 hotels right now we could pick up for $36 million, puts about 8 or 9 million in, and they worth 82 million. It's all knowing how to look at the numbers and how to run the numbers and how to execute. Cincinnati, we had 38% rent growth last year. Wow. So when you're selling something off for net operating income, you're selling it off at a cap rate. Man, that 38% rent growth, you may not see that. You may see 20% rent growth, but that's millions of dollars on an apartment complex.
So do you stay in that market area, or do you do stuff out of the state as well?
I'm really only focused. I got about 1,700 apartments right now. And I got 4 hotels. I got another hotel I'm building down in Florida. I got 2 more that I'm working to get under contract. I'm really focused on hotels right now because hotels, life is good. I don't really need the money anymore. And I worked so hard for so long, so many 18-hour days. And sacrificed so much that I just want to enjoy life a little bit now.
Good for you. So how did you get into that hotel? What was that motivating factor for you to switch?
Great question. So I went bankrupt 2008, 2009, 2010. I went bankrupt. June 14th of 97, I got out of prison. June 14th of 2013, my bankruptcy got discharged. Chapter 7, I lost everything. And so in losing everything, I learned a lot because I didn't stop. Just because I was losing stuff, just because the sheriff's at my house, didn't mean that I stopped. I kept pushing. I ended up negotiating with the banks. I ended up getting my private investors never missed a payment. And so when I came out of bankruptcy, they were still there with money. They was like, man, you could have took us down. And, it was hard. It was hard as hell. Like there were days when I cried, man. And outside the house, because I didn't want my wife to have to deal with that. Because at this time, we got a kid, we got 2 kids, 3 kids. And so, I called my partner, Mike, when I was going bankrupt because we had kind of drifted apart in 2006.
Did you go bankrupt because of the market, because of the 2008 crash?
No, we drifted apart because we had different visions for what we wanted to do.
But the bankruptcy, did that happen because of the crash?
Oh, yeah, that definitely happened because of the crash. And so I called Mike because Mike had lost everything before. And he's got a book called From Broke to Millions. And he'll tell you about losing everything. And so I called him and he helped me. He started laughing when I told him what I was going through. And, I wanted to smack him. But, he was laughing because he was like, man, sounds like a great opportunity. And so, see, that's a mindset shift. One man's problems is another man's treasure, right? But Mike helped and showed me how to work everything out with the banks. And a lot of those properties I still have today. Actually, 3 of them I got back free and clear from the banks because they couldn't prove that they had title on them. And so, never stop fighting. You only fail when you stop, or when you die, right? And so if you're giving up prematurely, you'll never make it.
Nate, I love that. Everything is an opportunity. I love that.
Everything is
there's an opportunity.
Yeah,
it is. And I got to get rid of all these properties that I had too much leverage on going through bankruptcy. And I got to come in and use my private investors to buy the ones back I wanted to keep. And so in 2015, by 2015, I came out of bankruptcy 2013. 2014, we bought 28% of the multifamily that traded in Cincinnati with a 400 credit score with no money, right? Because I learned how to syndicate. I learned how to find people that had credit that could sign for debt. I learned that if I had to deal, that if I knew how to put it together, I knew how to manage it, I knew how to do the construction, I knew how to evaluate it, then I could find other people to fill in the gaps. And that's how I learned how to syndicate. I ended up meeting some banking guys and they taught me all this stuff. And I started learning about cap rates. And at first I thought cap rates were a scam. I was like, nah, man, if you put $1 down to net operating income, you're going to get 12 back. That sounds like a scam. But once I realized why they did that, because, we're selling at an 8 cap and they're borrowing money at a 6, it was a leverage return. I really started to understand that. It started to make sense. And 2015, though, Mike was down in Atlanta. He's good friends with, famous, what's his name? Jerome Bettis. And so he's down there with him and he's down there with this other guy named Mitt. And he asked Mitt, he said, hey, Mitt, he just seen Mitt happy all the time. He said, Mitt, how's your hotel doing? And he said, which one, Mike? And, I got 70 of them.
Wow.
And so Mike was inspired to get into hotels because this guy was also part owner of the Atlanta Hawks. And so Mike was like, man, we need to do hotels. And I was like, man, I'm scared to death, bro. I don't want to do nothing right now. Well, Mike went out and got a $75 million development project because Mike was kind of like involved in the city. And he ended up winning the RFP for that. The deal didn't end up going through. Mike ended up losing $300,000 or $400,000 on it. But his desire to want to get a hotel didn't go away. So a few years later, hotel comes up and it was a Courtyard Marriott and it needed renovated. And that's our strength is renovation. And he kind of dragged me into it. To be honest with you, I was fearful. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know how we were going to do it. I didn't know how we were going to get it done. And everything that we just kept saying, we just kept finding a solution. Well, we can't, they won't let us do it because we can't sign for debt. We don't own any hotels. Okay, we got these people to sign for debt. What's next? Okay, this, what's next? What's next? And that's it. And we overcame that. And then Mike calls me. He says, hey, man, I need you at the attorney office tomorrow. We got a closing. And we close on properties probably, every week. So that wasn't weird. And then so I was like, okay, what we closing on? He was like, the hotel. And I had like anxiety set in. So I was afraid.
Did you use the same investor pool to get those hotels? And then how is the money different between rental properties that you have and then now with this hotels?
Well, the one investor I told you that was really plugging me, he ended up dying. Like I was down in Puerto Rico and they took him in the hospital and he died. Like I just talked to him a week before about another hotel and he was going to invest in that. And he just died. And
right.
So,
you can't fix that.
He wasn't an option for us. He had something wrong with his heart.
Okay, that sucks.
We had to go out and we had to refigure out how to raise capital and go out and syndicate and how to do a 506B and a 506C and put a PPM together, and I had to understand blue sky laws. These are all things that you need to understand if you're syndicating capital, guys. And so we had a bunch of investors, but we had some out of China who had money over here who ended up giving us the bulk of that hotel. But we also, on a house, you need what, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 down. You can call a friend. On a hotel, you need a couple million down.
Sure.
That's a little bit more, but we worked it out, I think, where we only had to bring $1.7 million to closing on this hotel. We use what was called PACE, which are energy tax credits, and the bank will count them. Even though you're creating these subsidies, they go on your tax assessment as energy credits. Then you get to get the money from the energy credits. So it's a way of getting money where you don't have to actually raise money.
Got it. So your partner got you into the hotels and you're still apprehensive. You're not sure where it's going. So now going down the road a couple of years, how is the money different between owning a hotel versus owning a multifamily complex?
Hold on. I'll tell you. Hold on. I'm going to pull up one of my reports and see how much we did last night.
One night.
This is real time. I love it. We're going to see real time. What was the money? Show me the money.
I can put this up on the screen for you probably, but let's see here. Okay, this is one of our hotels here. Let's see how much is done on the month so far. $343,000 so far this month.
And
from one hotel?
From how many units?
One hotel.
So how many keys?
This is 145 keys. It did $11,330.85 last night.
Wow.
It was 84% occupied. The average daily rate was $91.89.
And that's in Cincinnati, right?
No, this one's in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So they're a lot more. They're better. They're class like A assets. I don't have to be involved in the day to day. All of the properties that I buy, I'm heavily involved in until they get over to the management company. But even when they get over to the management company, it might take 18 months. Because when I'm buying a 100-unit complex, we're stabilizing it. We're coming in. We're new roofs. We're new gutters. We're painting exterior, new windows. We're redesigning the kitchens and gutting the bathrooms. We're taking these buildings that were functionally obsolete, maybe blowing out walls, and I'm coming in designing that. And, they're just old buildings from the 1970s. The plumbing stacks are messed up, that landscaping, you got water issue. everything. So those issues aren't resolved the day you buy them. A lot of times you need a big rainstorm and you say, okay, we got some more problems. So it's always, there's always problems with the apartments. With the hotels, it's more understanding why you're buying here. What are the demand drivers? Where's the opportunity at? What can we do to push the average daily rate? What can we do to push the occupancy? And that's done more on an executive level as opposed to me going in there and physically doing the work.
So you would say that your multifamily and your flipping led you into this new world of hotel ownership. Now, is that going to be your focus moving forward? Or are you still, having these remembrances of when you did these smaller deals, or you're just, that's where you're going and the rest is something you're never going to go back to?
Yeah. So I'm an advantageous buyer. So right now, if I found a multifamily that was probably above 20 million, that was a good deal, I would probably look at it. But I got to look at my time and how much of my time it's going to take up. Right now, hotels, there's a ton of opportunity because of COVID. And, there's not enough developers in a hotel space right now. where the apartment space is kind of oversaturated. Everybody has apartments, everybody's doing apartments, and it's easier to get into that. The money's easier to get. It's harder to get qualified on a hotel. And so for right now, my margins are better. You know, I want to get to $1 billion over the next 3 years in hotels, in the hotel space, and in some developing. But if there's an opportunity that opens itself up as far as an apartment complex, I would buy it in Cincinnati. And I would buy it nationally. We were just looking at one in Raleigh. It would just have to be the right opportunity, though.
Could you use, for someone who's starting out, or let's say they're midway to where you are, could you use the apartment buildings that you have as leverage to get into your hotels or to get into a hotel project?
You can, but you're gonna have to partner. So what my partner Mike Gilley was smart enough to do was, we got this what do you call it, executive summary put together, and it's got a picture of me and Mike in there, but it's got a picture of Dr. Sapp, the guy that signed for debt. You know, he's got 15 hotels. It's got a picture of the two guys at the management company that we brought in and gave them a little small portion of the general partnership, that have built over 286 hotels, that manage over 50, I think at the time it was 48 hotels. So when you do the executive summary, here's what it said. Collectively, this group owns or manages over 48 hotels, have been doing real estate since 1981, have built 286 ground up hotels. So they don't look at me and Mike. They're like, who are those guys? Oh, who cares? They're irrelevant, right? And so it's all about putting your paperwork together. Then you got an attorney that they're talking to that knows what they're doing. You don't necessarily have to know what you're doing all the time. It helps, but you just have to know how to put the right people around you.
We talk about that all the time, having partners and how partners make you stronger, getting the right people on your team, things of that sort. I do have one question from the audience right now. And they want to know, how do you give back to the community? What have you done since you were in your days, you know, in your days of doing bad to now? What have you done to give back to that community and help other people not do what you did?
So I got a group with over 220,000 people in it that I show how to do real estate. Many of them have become millionaires within a year. I put a program together as well. I give out a lot of scholarships to the program and show people exactly how to do this program. We're in the middle of starting a nonprofit up, and what I want to do is scale this nonprofit all over the country, and we're going to teach people from the inner city, people that would grow up and maybe they're going to be drug dealers, or maybe they were drug dealers. We're going to teach them, look, man, we're not going to teach them. We're going to teach them how to do carpentry, plumbing, electric, everything. We're going to teach them how to do property management, how to do the leasing, how the bank financials work, and how the burr works. But we're not teaching them to be employees. We're teaching them to be owners. Because when you're an owner, you have to understand how to manage all this stuff. And so what I got a buddy of mine right now that I want to work with and try this out in Cincinnati. And we're going to put the money up to do a burr on a commercial building. We're going to get the community involved, and he's going to train them. They're going to get scholarships to my academy. So we're going to train them as well. And we got some of the people that have already went through the academy that I think we can get to volunteer. They're going to burr. So let's say we put $250,000 down. Once they burr it, they'll get that $250,000 back. The nonprofit gets that money back, and then we redeploy it to another city or another place where we can do this over and over and over again. And
your group is on Facebook, right?
Yeah, it's on Facebook, correct. It's a private group on Facebook.
What's the name of your academy, Nate?
It's BIA, Burr Invest Academy is the name of the academy. That's a private group, but the Burr Invest website, the Burr Invest group is free. That's BRRRR Invest on Facebook. Very active group, a great group where you can ask questions and get questions answered, and not high level, probably in detail like what you guys teach, but there is some, great information. And there's a lot of people in there that are, got 10 million, $100 million in real estate that are in the group as well.
So all right, Burr. All right, Nate, I'm joining it right now. I'm literally going on my phone and I'm going to join your Facebook. I like Facebook. Thank you. I'm older, so I'm still like all into Facebook.
So Nate, I have a few questions here about the hotels that you're involved in. Do you do them internationally or just in the U.S.?
No, we're just in the U.S. I understand. Now, we did have one in the Bahamas that we were looking to buy, and I would love to buy this one. I don't know if it's going to happen. It's on the water. It's beachfront, so I would love to buy that one. But
I will totally be your friend when you buy the Bahamas beachfront hotel. Just remember me.
Why don't you invest?
I should, right?
we'll turn the whole thing into masterminds, man. We'll just have people come out there, network, real estate. I mean, that's amazing when you get a bunch of people that want to do real estate around people that are doing real estate. Man, there's nothing more amazing than that, especially if you can trap them and put them on an island. Right? Quit making excuses. You're going to use some real estate.
We try to trap our students in class so we can teach them. So yeah, totally get it. Totally get it. So what advice would you give to that first time that, someone is out there, they're motivated by you, by us, then they really want to jump in. They have no experience. They've had a crazy past, whether it's been a tough family or a tough choices that they made in life. Like, what would be that first bit of advice you would give somebody to get started in real estate?
Find you a mentor. Find you somebody you can learn from that is successful in doing this stuff already. It will save you a ton of time. Actually, I got a podcast after this with the guy that was on my podcast yesterday. He was a firefighter, and he said in 2014, he just sat in a parking lot, and he was like, man, I'm either going to have to get a divorce or I'm going to have to figure something out, because he was working 1,000 hours of overtime. It was stressing his marriage, and he bought a 50 unit was his first property. I said, how the hell did you do that? He said, well, I had a friend of mine who had become wealthy in real estate, and he told me to go get a mentor, a local mentor. And he went out and he got a mentor. He said, I'm willing to do whatever for free. He worked for the guy for free for a year. And by getting all the experience, he was able to go to a bank and qualify to get a 50 unit. He syndicated the capital, had somebody else sign debt. But get you a mentor, because if you don't really understand what the goal is, everybody thinks it's a money problem. I'm going to be honest with you guys, man. Everybody always says, here's what they say. I said, what's keeping you? Money. Okay, so if I gave you $50,000 right now, what would you do with it? I'd go buy a property. What kind of property? What do the numbers look like? What kind of cash flow you're going to have? What kind of area? What kind of appreciation? I don't know. Well, if you don't know any of this, you can't just go buy a property. It's committing financial suicide. You got to get educated in it first.
Agreed 100%. And we want our subscribers to let us know what they feel about how they get started and if they think that money is an obstacle for them.
So go press the subscribe button, everyone. Subscribe. Go search up Nate and go subscribe to his podcast. Nate, what's the name of your podcast? This is The Remix, and you are the
Lever Up. 72X, baby. That's what we teach people how to do. 72X your money. You can become a millionaire in 5 years. Anybody can in real estate once you understand the Burr method.
So you need to subscribe to us, and then right after that, go subscribe to Nate and
then lever up.
Yeah.
Lever up your life, man. And look, can I say one last thing? Find your why. It's not about you. If it's just about you, you're probably not going to do it. It has to be deeper than you. It has to be your wife, your husband, your kids, your mom, your dad. You got to find a reason, something that's driving you every day.
Makes sense. And we talk about that too. So again, thanks for coming on our podcast today. We hope to do some more stuff with you in the future.
You're awesome, Nate.
Hey, you guys are awesome too. Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to have you guys on my podcast as well.
Absolutely.
Totally want to do that.
Absolutely. We love real estate, and we love teaching, and we love motivating others just like you are. So great job to you. And remember, everybody out there, if you visualize it, you can own it. So we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you guys so much. You guys have an amazing day.
You too. Bye. Yep.